What's going on, Shogun Defenders? It's Master Sergeant Flores here with our Squadron podcast. We have a special guest today, our very own First Sergeant, who's going to kind of talk to us on what it takes to become a First Sergeant. We've been getting a lot of questions from NCOs and senior NCOs on the process. So without further ado, we have our shirt here, the senior who's going to tell us about what it takes to be a First Sergeant. So first of all, senior, thank you for allowing us to do this interview with you so we can get this information out to up-and-coming NCOs and senior NCOs that want to become First Sergeants someday. Just to start off, how long have you been a First Sergeant wearing the diamond?
Yeah, so wearing the diamond, I will hit 2 years this coming March, so in a couple weeks. So it's flown by, actually. I can't believe it's already been 2 years. I don't know. It's one thing as far as like Air Force time flying by. I think it's another thing when you wear the diamond and just like the day in, day out of everything. And before you know it, man, 2 years gone just like that. But yeah, it's definitely excellent, very rewarding as well.
Is this with 18th SFS? Are we considered your second unit or your first unit being issued, or?
So that's Security Forces is my second unit. So I've been the First Sergeant since May of last year. So here in a few more months, I'll hit my year mark in May. Previous to that, I was the First Sergeant for the 320th Special Tactics Squadron up in the SOG on the north side of base here at Kadena. So a little different culture. Both units are unique and amazing in their own right. And so when I got here at Kadena in March of 2019, that was my first unit. So I had TDY in transit as far as PCSing, go to First Sergeant Academy, picking up the diamond, and then rolling into my first unit here at Kadena in March of 19.
Okay, gotcha. For the vectoring process on becoming a shirt, was that something that you were pretty much hand selected or chosen, or was it something you kind of volunteered for because it's something you always want to do, maybe as an airman or an NCO?
Yeah, so the DSD process for becoming a First Sergeant has changed many times. So about 2.5 years ago, I was in an overseas unit. So of course, when DSDs, it's all about your DROS and your bucket on your window as far as looking at DSDs. I'm Intel by trade, so 16 years being an Intel analyst. My career field does not release a whole lot of people into any DSDs. So the quota was one Master Sergeant for that cycle. When my window came up and my First Sergeant asked me which DSDs I wanted to be put in for, I only asked for First Sergeant. That was the only DSD that I thought would be kind of the most rewarding as far as getting outside the career field, really seeing true Air Force and the different operational tempos, cultures, and environment that the Air Force has to offer. And then just being in a unique position that the First Sergeant has. It's a very unique role. Not every service has it, so the Navy doesn't have it. I know we've got sailors here. So every newcomers, I kind of explained what a First Sergeant's role is. Because again, it's definitely unique. A lot of rich history, of course, going back into the 1800s with the Army as well.
So it was actually pretty humbling for you to get selected out of everyone in your AFSC, your career field.
Oh, I was completely shocked. So the DSC process at that time was vectoring. So I got vectored by my squadron commander, pushing my name up to higher headquarters. And then at the time I had gotten selected for a senior intel course, which I thought I was going to after a PCS. And then out of the blue, I got an email from the ACC First Sergeant Functional. Congratulations, you got picked up for First Sergeant duty. So it was a wonderful surprise, and definitely the notification process was a little not what it should be. Right? It should be your squadron commander coming down, notifying you of DSD process and getting picked up. And again, that process has changed many times. So the current DSD process is senior NCOs push a button in my purse as far as applying to be a first sergeant. There's a little quick questionnaire as far as putting their name in the bucket, and then there's a package that they have to coordinate, getting medical clearance, MFR, getting approved by the squadron commander, so a little bit of vectoring, right? And then it works its way up to the command chief, and the command chief does an interview and a rack and stack as that gets pushed up, and there's 2 windows for first sergeant DSD, a spring and a fall.
So with this being your second unit, what would you say is some of the biggest surprises you've kind of learned on the job that you kind of didn't think first sergeants were involved in, and now you're very much involved in it, or you've seen it through the process becoming a first sergeant? Just big surprises?
Yeah, I think the biggest surprises is just one, that the influence that you do have wearing the diamond. So it's how you use it, right? Because when I make phone calls to different base agencies and I state, hey, I'm the first sergeant for security forces, now the base agencies, whoever I'm talking to, right, now they know it's an important matter if the first sergeant's calling, so they're going to work those issues a little bit quicker. So that's whether it's getting someone out on emergency leave, whether that's getting someone out processed, whether that's someone helping humanitarian, and a variety of different other things, right? There's 1,001 ways that different fires that we put out as first sergeants. So every day is something new, something different. I'm constantly learning. I think that's one of the greatest things about being a first sergeant is just the multitude of different scenarios and situations that you help airmen out with. And every day is something new. So it's constantly a learning process. So you just have to be very open-minded and just get after things and learn how to prioritize as well. I think that's kind of the biggest thing I learned as far as that. And just before becoming a first sergeant, also didn't realize the connections that you make across base, right? The resources that you have to pull, the personal connections that you make with officers like SAPR, I know who they are, whether it's OSI, whether it's the PME Center, or even the command chief, to address issues, bigger Air Force issues that they can work for more of a strategic viewpoint.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. First sergeants are very much involved in a lot of things. They talk to everyone throughout the base, all the base agencies, everyone, different units. With the amount of units we have here at Kadena, I know the shirts are always heavily involved in everything. So yeah. I can see the footprint behind being a diamond, especially here at Kadena, how much of an impact it is.
True, so true. And being overseas, there's so many different rules when it comes to being an overseas first sergeant, because you have to work within the SOFA. So we are guests here as far as guests of Japan being here, and we have to abide by their rules as well. And then you throw in COVID, right? And then you throw in DROSs, and then you throw in all these other second, third order effects that can cause issues with airmen, whether it's their career path and choice, or family issues, getting their family here, getting them out. Just a lot more hurdles to jump through, but we make it happen as a team, so we definitely don't do it alone.
So what do you think some of the, maybe a tough situation or the tough things you feel like you've had to be involved in or had to work out as a first sergeant that just comes with this position? I mean, the different things, I call it the tough times or the tough situations you've had to endure as a first sergeant.
Yeah, so I'll take that kind of twofold. So one, definitely from like a discipline standpoint, right? First sergeants, we handle a lot of the paperwork side and talking with legal, working with the commander, whether that's Article 15's NJP. It's an unfortunate piece of just being a first sergeant. My biggest piece as far as bringing airmen in when it comes to situations like that, it's not that we're trying to, punish the airmen. We're just holding them accountable. They're not bad airmen. It's just a bad mistake, right? So it's addressing that piece. And my biggest thing is making sure that they have the resiliency and bounce back to learn from it, right? An Article 15 or going through anything like that is significant, right? For that airman, I recognize that. I've gone through an Article 15 when I was an airman, so I completely understand where they're coming from. And I draw upon that experience, let them know, hey, you can still make it in the Air Force. We're not kicking you out, but you have to learn from it. You can't repeat the same mistake. So you can still progress in your career field. I've made first sergeant, I made senior master sergeant, even with that. So keep your head up, attitude and effort will get you pretty far. So just dealing with those personal circumstances as far as, bumps in the road, as far as career-wise, is always tough. And each airman is a little different when it comes to those circumstances. I think the other biggest struggle is just the it's 24/7 job, right? So that phone is always with you. You never know when you're going to get a phone call or issues that you have to work constantly as far as the bandwidth amount of time that you put in. And so I think that work-life balance is definitely a struggle, right? So there's definitely times where I can tell my wife isn't, the happiest with me, and I have to recognize that and give up the phone to someone else to take over, and just be smart and judicious about that, because it can be a struggle with home life as far as first sergeants and just the amount of effort and energy we put in, but knowing, hey, we've got to take care of the unit, we also have to take care of home life too.
Okay. And then I always like to end it with one last final question. So do you have any advice or suggestions for NCOs or senior NCOs that are interested in becoming a first sergeant someday? Aspirations?
Yeah, I definitely do, and it's kind of funny. Recently, I did a first sergeant panel with FTAC, and there was an airman brand new to the Air Force, and she's already talking about, hey, I want to become a first sergeant. What do I do to become a first sergeant? So my biggest suggestion and tip is know your job, do your job. You're not going to become a first sergeant if you're not great at your job, because you're not going to get recommended by your squadron commander and leadership if they can't trust you in your primary duties, right? So just continue to be a SME, subject matter expert at your job, kind of the go-to guy, someone that command leadership can rely on. Just knock out the job portion 100%. Secondly, take advantage of the leadership opportunities that you have as being a frontline supervisor, because I tell us that NCOs and senior NCOs, they're little first sergeants, like with their immediate, troops underneath them or their flight, like they are a mini first sergeant. They can do a lot of the job that the first sergeant does as far as taking care of the airmen, help mentoring, grow them into eventually replacing them as well. So when it comes to that piece, as far as being a frontline supervisor, do the best that you can as far as taking care of the people. So if you're able to take care of the mission and take care of the people, everything will kind of fall into place. And then also just get outside your comfort zone. Everyone gets very comfortable in their little bubble, and which is good, right? But it's good to step outside of that bubble, because that just means your bubble just grew a little bit. So be comfortable being uncomfortable. So whether that's, taking on leadership roles as far as getting out with base organizations, whether that's going to the McDaniel Center and giving briefings to other airmen, whatever you feel your weakness is at, go attack that and try to just get better at it. So those are some tips that I have.
Okay. So thanks for doing this. We appreciate it, just teaching us the process and everything on what it takes to be a first sergeant. So Defenders, if you guys have any questions or anything with the first sergeant process, please link up with Senior Chauvin, and he can guide you through this and have some one-on-one time with you. But that's it. That's all we got for our podcast. More to follow. Shogun Defenders signing out.